everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Lacey. I am a modern hedge witch. I am a practicing witch for 20 years, and today I am going to talk to you about celebration ideas, some things to do, and tips for Samhain. Now I'm coming to you from in front of my witchy cabinet, so if you want to see a formal tour of this, leave me a comment below and I will try to make that happen. I'm also coming to you with a very pregnant belly. Oh, but before we get started, I just want to mention really quickly that the Naturally Modern Witch Spellbook memberships have opened back up. We opened them up for the new moon for about a week, and this month we are focusing on Samhain and the blue moon, or the full moon, that is most commonly known now as the hunter's moon, but there's tons of different names for it, and I think it's great that we name the moons for ourselves and the seasons for ourselves. So you can absolutely check that out. I'll link it below. But what I'm doing for this particular month, which is kind of special, I've never done this before, you don't have to join the membership. You can actually just go and purchase and download the digital spellbook pretty much anytime that you want. So I have that, and I also have witchcrafting boxes, which pulls on the themes and the symbolism of Samhain as well. So you would have to order that by the 25th to get it in time for Samhain, but I'm going to link everything down below so that you can check it out. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about Samhain. So Samhain is a Gaelic word, and it was originally a Celtic festival which marked the end of the harvest season, going into the dark half of the year. It marked winter, and it also marked the third and final harvest, the harvest of vine fruit. So you have 3 harvest festivals that we celebrate in the wheel of the year, and that is the first one, the harvest of grain, the second one, the harvest of tree fruit and nuts, so like apples and pears and well, nuts, and then the third one, which is the harvest of vine fruit, like pumpkins. So that kind of explains why pumpkins and gourds and those sort of things are really popular this time of year. So this begins the season of winter, or the season of rest, because this is a time when the earth begins to die down, at least here in the northern hemisphere. It's also thought that this is the time of year when the veils between the spirit world and our world are the thinnest. Samhain has a counterpart, which is Beltane or Beltane around May, and that's also a time when the veils are thin as well. Now, Samhain was originally celebrated in Celtic culture, and it has a really long history, but today it's often celebrated on October 31st into November 1st. But the actual day that it was celebrated may have depended on a couple different factors. So it might have just been the day that the harvest was genuinely over. It might have also been based on when the new moon closest to that particular date was, and so forth. During this time, the hearth fires inside the homes were left to burn out while the last bit of the harvest and gathering was done. After the harvest and gathering, there would have been a big festival and a feast, probably a ritual where everyone brought fire home to relight their hearths inside for winter nights. Now, Samhain goes by so many different names. There are different cultures that celebrate it in different ways. So we might think more along the lines of Mexico, South America, and even Spain that has their celebration. But all over the world, there are different celebrations for something like this. That's sort of the end of the year that honors ancestors or is moving into winter. So I'm going to link some below. There are also so many different alternative names for Samhain, and I can't pronounce all of them. It's quite a long list, and so I'm going to leave them below for you as well. Now, the Celts believed that since this was a time that the veils between our worlds were so thin that spirits would cross over, and as a way to appease them, they would leave offerings outside. Later in Ireland, this became mumming, which is a practice of dressing up, singing to the departed, and these people were also paid in cakes, which became modern day trick-or-treating. They also carved turnips into lanterns, which gave way to our modern day jack-o'-lantern. These lanterns were meant to scare away any spirits that might cause harm. And if you want to know why we call them jack-o'-lanterns, Jack, you can actually look up the story of Stingy Jack, which is kind of a really cool example of how older pagan customs mixed with Christian customs and stories. So many of these practices were adopted in the 19th century in America when immigrants came over from Ireland into America, and that's why Halloween is so popular today in the States. All right, so let's get on to some celebration ideas. You can Carve jack-o'-lanterns. Of course, you can carve pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern, but instead of just setting it out and just having it be just there, you can use that as a way of warding or as a way of protection for your home. There are different types of workings you can do with that jack-o'-lantern, and pumpkins actually have some really great magical energy, as well as the pumpkin seeds can be dried out, used in magical spell charms and workings as well, or you can roast them and eat them, which is delicious. And that brings me to eating seasonal foods. So pomegranates, pumpkins, squash, apples, anything of that sort that is a seasonal food is a really great way to celebrate the season and Samhain. You can cleanse your home for the new year. So Samhain is also known as the Witch's New Year because it's the last spoke in the Wheel of the Year. And so anything that you would do as part of a refreshing sense or new year, anything that you would do that's like a new year custom would be appropriate now. So maybe you want to deep clean, like physically clean your home, or maybe you want to do like an energetic cleaning or something that brings you a fresh new start for the year. You could also host a silent supper. Now these have long been known as dumb suppers, but I prefer to use the word silent because that's essentially what it means, is that you sit and eat in silence. They've also been called Feast of the Dead, or there's different variations on it. But in our home, we like to do a silent supper where we set out a place setting to any of the departed souls, loved ones that we invite to that dinner. And then we do a little bit of a ritual there. You can also take a nature walk, and you can decorate with things that you find in nature. So pine cones and acorns are great for decorating. They are easy to find in nature in most places, and you can also use them in your magical workings because acorns and pine cones have some really great magical properties as well. So something that I like to do basically as a modern house witch is to maybe have a bowl full of something, but that's charmed. I've charmed that bowl, or I've enchanted it in some way. Maybe there is like a, you might see a bowl of potpourri and that might feel completely, in its place or normal in a home, but what you don't realize is that it could be a magical working. Another thing that you can do is visit a cemetery to pay your respects. So if you are close to a cemetery of any of your loved ones who have passed by, or even if it's a cemetery and you don't know anyone who is there, who has been laid to rest there, you can still go and pay your respects. Divination is also really popular this time of year, particularly because you have that aspect of going into the new year. The veils are very thin. There's a lot of wanting to know or wanting to maybe make goals and planning because it's the season of rest. You might be planning the next season, the season of planting. And so doing divination is a really great way to set goals or get some guidance for action steps to move forward. You can do a releasing ritual, which is really good if you're trying to move into the next year. So for this time of year, I like to go out and collect leaves, write anything on them that I want to release, and then I would use earth magic or fire magic to then release them. So for example, if I wanted to use earth magic, I would compost those leaves, bury them into the earth so that I can compost what I need to release. Also, if you wanted to use fire magic, you can burn them or maybe use a candle and incorporate fire magic into that releasing ritual. Pause and reflect. So this is a time of year when we are going inward. It is getting darker outside. We're probably spending more time at home. It's also, again, the new year, so it's a great time to pause and reflect. Commune with the departed or honor the departed. So some people might find it really comforting to create an ancestor altar. This is a great thing to do any time of year. Honoring the ancestors is very popular now because of Samhain, because of the veils being so thin. But you can absolutely do this any time of year. And again, particularly at Samhain's counterpart in May, you could absolutely do it then. Maybe start it then and continue it and maybe revisit that same ancestor altar, give it a refresh or something like that this time of year. So the next one is actually a line taken from the Wiccan Reed, which says, "When the wind blows from the west, departed souls shall have no rest." So it has become a custom to open a west-facing window and light a candle there for any departed souls. You could also make your own type of spirit cake or soul cakes for your own offering. So you could look up various recipes if you like, or you can just make your own bread or cake and use that in your ritual as your offering, or place it outside as an offering. You could use that so many different ways. You could just enjoy it at the end of your ritual as dessert, or within your ritual as libation. There's quite a few ways that you could do that. Share stories about ancestors or departed loved ones. This actually gave way to the custom of telling ghost stories on Halloween, where we would talk about those who had departed, and we would tell stories about their life and accomplishments, anything that was great, grand, or that we're proud of, or just comforting about those particular people in our lives. And finally, do a protection working. So I mentioned the jack-o'-lantern. You could use that from before, but you could do so many different types of protection workings. You could also do some type of inner work, dream work, things like that are really popular this time of year. But make sure that you have something close by if you're doing any type of dream work for protection. Okay, so those were just a couple ideas of how you could celebrate Samhain and a few activities. I'm going to mention a couple quick themes and symbols, colors, and things that you can find that correspond with this time of year. Pumpkins, skulls, and bones to represent ancestors or the element of earth. Pomegranates, apples, and of course pumpkins. Pomegranates have a long history association with the underworld. Apples and pumpkins are seasonal. Ghosts, spirits, photos of departed or ancestors, that would be great for your ancestor altar. Nocturnal animals such as bats and cats. Blackbirds you find very common this time of year, and also anything that you might find associated with witcheries, so cauldrons, hats, and brooms. Other themes are death and rebirth, releasing, composting, resting, and contact with the departed. Colors associated with this time of year are your typical fall colors, maybe black and brown and orange, yellow, red, gold and silver are almost always associated with the sun and the moon. And then maybe like your plums and things like that, that you also find your dark purples and maroons. Resting, contemplating, planning, protection, dark nights, and going inward. All right, everyone, so I hope that you found this video helpful and informative. Again, I'm gonna leave all those links below and some more information, so be sure to check it out, and I will see you next time.